Welcome to It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree, providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith. You can log on to our website at igbatt.com. And as always, we're here to make hope an option. Again, log on to our website at igbattmho.org. You can find out more about our organization, find out more about us, and why we do what we do. Today, I wanted to talk about the title self-critic or self-criticism. This is what I wanted to kind of talk about today. Before I go any further, if you do go on our website, we have some products that we're offering. In addition to the t-shirt, we have what's called our Hope Box. Inside the Hope Box, you get a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, you get some other items, but more importantly, you will get I believe we did it for 30 days, I'm not sure, 2 weeks, a supply where you will have a case manager, so to speak. So this Hope Box is for anybody, but especially if you know someone who's just recently getting out of the hospital, or if you have a question about mental health, or resources in your community. As part of the Hope Box, we're offering you a case manager, so to speak, someone to kind of help you, walk you through the process, to make sure you get connected to services, to help you coordinate services, to answer any questions that you might have. So again, go on our website, igbattmho.org, and you can find out more about that. But today I wanted to talk about, as I said, being the self-critic. This conversation is really definitely for people who have been impacted by a mental illness, a severe and persistent mental illness, either as a person who has been diagnosed or as a family member or loved one in particular. One of the things that you deal with, many people who have a chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic mental illness, again, as a family member, loved one, is shame. S-H-A-M-E. There's a lot of shame goes along with that. There's a lot of embarrassment sometimes that goes along with that, because, as we said before, many severe mental illnesses or chronic mental illnesses first show up when a person is younger. You start seeing things like when a kid, junior high school, you start seeing things around that age. And it's not maybe until a person gets older that you really start seeing more of it. But what happens is that criticism, that shame, those feelings of shame, those feelings of being different start way before a person is given a diagnosis. So I may be given a diagnosis, but way before I get the diagnosis, I'm starting having these feelings because I know something is going on with me. I may not know what it is. I just know I'm always down, I'm always depressed, I'm always up and down in my mood, or whatever the case is. And what happens sometimes, because I know there's something going on with me, I may start smoking marijuana, or I may start using other drugs, because those drugs help me with my mood. And it's not until I get older, now that I have a substance abuse problem, that I realize, and I'm trying to get clean, that I realize that the substances was just a mask for how I was feeling, because I never got treatment. And that's what happens with a lot of people. So there are a lot of things to unpack when we talk about having a severe and persistent mental illness or chronic illness. And you're diagnosed, there's embarrassment, because think about it. No one wants to be diagnosed with a chronic illness, or no one wants to be admit that they hear voices, or that they see things, or that you have to deal with this particular depression. And like I said before, severe and persistent mental illnesses, or mental illnesses that are chronic, are just like any other chronic illness that you may have, whether it's diabetes, whether it's hypertension. When you're talking about a chronic illness, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have lows, highs. It's an illness that has to be managed just like any other. So kind of keep that in mind. It's important to know that it's an illness that will have to be managed just like any other. Unfortunately, instead of looking at it like that, so mental illnesses like that, we see it as an indictment against ourselves. We start feeling bad about ourselves. If it's your child, you may feel embarrassed, and it's okay to admit that, because when you first gave birth to your child, you didn't think that you would have you in your mind, you envisioned this person would go away to college, this person would get married, have children, this person would be kind of like on their own, so to speak, right? You didn't think that that this person would be their life would be they wouldn't be going to school, or they would have dropped out, that they have to deal with medications, that you have to kind of help them do things that you didn't think that you would, that a parent would do. So it's okay to grieve that. It's okay to say, well, I didn't understand this. I was working with a couple that I know. The kid was really, really smart, had gotten a scholarship to go away to Penn State, I believe. And while he was at Penn State, he had his first, what people call it, psychotic break or psychotic episode. And their whole life changed. It changed because here's a smart kid. I thought this was going to happen. I thought, he was going to get his degree and, all of these things that you imagine as a parent, and none of that happened. And the big thing with them was that grieving, is coming to grips with the fact that what I thought is no longer going to happen. Okay? And again, as we always say here, it can still happen. It may not happen the way that you think it would be. But that's just a side note to that. But it's so important to kind of realize that when you're living with a mental illness, shame, embarrassment, you don't want to admit what's going on with you. Because you know that you're different. People think you're strange. People think you're weird. People think, these are terms that people use, or they just think there's something wrong with you, and no one wants to be identified with that. Unfortunately, the news, when something happens, and if it's a person who has a mental illness or severe mental illness, the news sometimes really, blows it up. Oh, this person had a mental illness, and if you have a mental illness, you don't want to identify with that, right? Because you don't want, everybody's now looking at this person on the news. So you don't want to identify with that individual or with that stigma. But I want you to know that if you are dealing with shame, embarrassment, just, not feeling good about yourself because of your illness, I want you to realize that, number one, you have a chronic illness, just like any other illness, that can be managed. The key is learning how to manage it. Number two is dealing with that self-critic, and which is what we're going to talk about today. When we talk about criticism, the things that feeling that shame, feeling embarrassed, those things come from thoughts. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors go together. So like we say it all the time, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. They all kind of go together. So when you're feeling that shame, when you're feeling that embarrassment, and you start talking to yourself, I want you to pay attention to what are some of those things that you're telling yourself. So what I want to do is kind of read a couple things here that I kind of wrote down. One of the things I wanted to talk about as a term is called cognitive distortions, right? Cognitive has to do with the thoughts and how we think. Cognitive distortions, by definition, are irrational thoughts that can influence your emotions. Now, what makes them irrational? What makes the thoughts irrational is that because they're not true, okay? But because we're so used to criticizing ourselves, what happens when you're dealing with shame, embarrassment, without even realizing it, we begin to take on the thoughts and feelings and behaviors of other people, of society, of our environment, okay? We take on the experiences, our past experiences. All of those things play into what we tell ourselves. I've said this before, if we were able to carry a tape recorder around with us and to record our thoughts for 30 days, you would be surprised, some of us would be surprised what types of thoughts would be on our tape recorder. So when we talk about cognitive distortions, we talk about those irrational thoughts. Irrational because they're not true, that influence our emotions. Irrational because these are the thoughts that come from those moments that when we're most self-critical of ourselves. It's irrational because those are the thoughts and feelings that come from the things that we heard or something that we saw on the news or that make us feel bad about ourselves, okay? Everyone experiences cognitive distortions. We all do this to some degree. This doesn't have anything to do with whether you have a chronic mental illness or not, right? What are some of the cognitive distortions? For example, and I'm just going to read a few, seeing only the worst possible outcomes of a situation, right? A thought, let's just say I lose my job. The first thing I think about, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to lose my car, I'm going to be put out on the street. Automatically. And I'm going to talk about automatic thoughts as well. Automatic thoughts are those thoughts that we have that are automatically. That's just that. They just come just like that, okay? Automatic thoughts, Again, those are things that just come, But when you look at automatic thoughts, look at your automatic thoughts. Well, what are they? And we're going to talk about a little exercise I want you to do. Pay attention to your automatic thoughts and begin to write them down. When you begin to write down your automatic thoughts, do you have thoughts that are more helpful or non-helpful? And for many of us, the thoughts that we have, those automatic thoughts, are going to be non-helpful thoughts, right? But we got to pay attention to those, because it's those automatic thoughts, it's those core beliefs, which we'll talk about as well. But it's those automatic thoughts that when they come, that play into our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. When we're acting a certain way, or when I'm feeling a certain way, it's because of the thoughts that are there. It's because of what I'm telling myself, okay? So when we look at cognitive distortions, seeing only the worst possible outcomes of a situation. When you have gone for so long and not really having a voice, again, when you talk about, many of you are living with schizophrenia, or in particular, or maybe bipolar, and because of when you had your episodes, people kind of ignored you, or they may say things like, oh, she need to get back on her medications, or when you say something, they will downplay what you say. Oh, well, you need to take your medications, that kind of stuff. So many times it makes you feel bad when people do that, right? Because people are not hearing you, okay? They're just seeing the illness. And this is so important that you have to begin to do is separate the illness from who you are. But a lot of times it's hard for people to do that, and it's hard for us to do that. It's hard for people who are living with a severe and persistent mental illness, and now you're getting better, and now you're trying to walk in the path of recovery, to separate the illness from the individual. And a lot of times people can't do that. They remember you. They remember the illness part of you. They don't know who you really are inside. And what we're talking about today is dealing with that self-critic, is for you to get to the point where you begin to understand who exactly you are, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay? Like I said before, your illness has nothing to do with what God has in plan for you, has in store for you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. But one of the cognitive distortions that I want to talk about again, I'm going to read a few of these. Cognitive distortions, what we tell ourselves, impact our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Because if my automatic thought is always negative, or always unhelpful, then I'm going to feel depressed. I'm always going to behave in a depressed manner. I'm going to always think that I can't do it. People are saying that you can do it. You automatically think that you can't. Someone says to you, oh, you look so beautiful. You don't believe it, right? Because of those cognitive distortions, those things that you've been telling yourself and saying to yourself for so long. So number one, as I said, seeing only the worst possible outcomes of a situation, okay? Overgeneralization. And this is where we make broad interpretations from a single or few events, right? So, for example, if you're asked to speak about your illness, for example, say, hey, would you say a few words? What is it like living with depression, for example, or living with schizophrenia? And rather than you give your speech, and maybe you made a mistake, or wasn't the best speech, or maybe somebody got up and left in the middle of your speech, right? Automatically what you do, you'll say things like, oh gosh, I can never give a good speech. Nobody ever likes me. You know what I'm saying? One person got up, and you don't even know why that person even got up. The person may have had to use the bathroom, for example. But then, again, that goes back to seeing the worst possible outcomes of a situation. You're giving a speech, the person got up and left, the first thing you think is about you, right? It's about me, the person doesn't like me, which is why they left. You don't never think about the fact, maybe the person got a phone call, maybe they had to use the bathroom. But that's what you automatically go to. And then if the speech and you feel wasn't good, you'll say things like, oh, I can never give a good speech. Things will never work out. So we start using these words to define one situation, and we just never, always, things must be a certain way. I have to. These words are so absolute. Rather than challenging those thoughts, rather than balancing out your thoughts, saying, no, it wasn't my best speech, but I'll get better. Or it wasn't my best speech, but there were some parts in it that was okay. Okay, I can improve, but we automatically go to the negative, okay? When we talk about self-critic, and these are things not from the outside, these are things that we're telling ourselves, right? things we begin to think, we have this, jumping to conclusions, right? We automatically think that we know what other people are thinking. And we think that based on our past experiences. You don't know what a person is thinking until you ask them, all right? Until you challenge your negative thoughts, your behaviors. But this is what we think. Then we get into this thing, it's called fortune teller. The expectation that a situation will turn out badly without adequate evidence. You don't even know what would happen if you approach an individual. No, I'm not going to do that because the last time I did that, da-da-da. Okay? Or you think that you know. No, I'm not going to ask this person because all they're going to do is tell me no anyway. Right? And if they tell you no, they tell you no, but at least you will have asked. One of the things, I wanted to phrase, let me make sure I come back to this, is called challenging the evidence. Where's the evidence? I want you to ask yourself, when you have a thought, where is the evidence? First of all, when you feel a certain way, when you start feeling down, depressed, or in a negative manner, right? You want to ask yourself, okay, why am I feeling this way? What are the thoughts that I've been telling myself? Okay, what are the thoughts that I've been telling myself? All yesterday, last night, this morning. What are the thoughts? What's going through my mind? And you want to begin to write down those thoughts that you're thinking, and begin to look at which thoughts are helpful and which thoughts are unhelpful. Okay, which thoughts are going to push me further to my destiny? Okay, or which thoughts are going to take me away from my destiny? Negative thoughts, self-critical thoughts, pushes away from our destiny. It pushes us away from the path that God has for us. Okay, it's not the illness. As I said this before, it is not the illness. Having a chronic illness doesn't mean that you can't achieve your goals. You may have to get there slower, but it doesn't mean that you cannot achieve your goals. What's pushing us away, what's getting in the way of us achieving our goals, is those thoughts that we're telling ourselves. It's that self-critic. A lot of times when a person says something and we become triggered and we get offended by what they're saying, it's not so much what they're saying, is that we believe what they're saying. Because what they're saying resonates on the inside, resonates with the self-critic, right? Because here's the thing, a person could not say anything to you. They can sit there quiet, they don't have to say anything. But if you have all this doubt, self-criticism, all this critical thinking on the inside of you, you're still going to have critical thoughts, right? We always want on the outside everything to be perfect on the outside, but we have to begin to look at what's going on the inside. What are those automatic thoughts? What are the cognitive distortions, right? Especially when you're overcoming shame and embarrassment. How did this come? How did I start feeling this shame, this embarrassment? As a result of being diagnosed with this illness, right? I'm different. As I said before, weird, stupid, all these thoughts that kind of go through your mind. So we know how we got here. I got here to this point where I'm so self-critical of myself because of the things that happened to me in the past, because of the experiences that I have. But I also know that I can't allow these things that happened to me in the past, the way I think presently, to determine my future. So I have to make some changes now. And what changes are you going to make? You're going to begin to challenge your thoughts. Well, number one, you're going to begin to become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking. Okay? You're going to begin to become aware of what you're feeling. Because many times what we are aware of first are the feelings. Right? Everybody, this is how I feel, this is how I feel, this is how I feel. Why are you feeling this way? It's not about because of what somebody said or what they didn't say. It's your interpretation of what they said, right? And then why did you interpret it to be that way? And you want to begin to kind of take a look at that. Because it's not, they shouldn't be insulting people. That may be true. But it doesn't matter what a person says if you're okay on the inside here. So again, this is what counts. It's not focusing on what's on the outside. Because that person could have moved away, gone, and you're still dealing with what they said in your mind, right? So again, we're talking about cognitive distortions. These are irrational thoughts that influence your emotions. And the problem about having irrational thoughts that influence your emotions is that it pushes you further away from your destiny. This is not trying to win an argument or make a point. This is about you moving forward in your goals. This is about you moving forward in the plan that God has for you. As I said before, God has created all of us for a wonderful purpose. It's up to us to determine what that purpose is and to begin to walk in that, okay? So again, when we look at thoughts, irrational thoughts that influence your emotions, if it's irrational, if it's taken away from your destiny, if it's irrational, if it's putting you in a place where you can't get along with anyone, where you're always in conflict with people, okay, and you're always in conflict with yourself, that's a problem, okay? So again, some of the things we talked about, overgeneralization, using words like always, everybody, nobody likes me, everybody's against me, etc. Mind reading, thinking that you know automatically what people are going to be saying. Oh, she's not going to go out with me, I'm too ugly. Or he doesn't like me because I'm too fat. You know, all of these mind reading, you just automatically know what people are thinking. Fortune telling, before the future comes, you already know things are going to be bad, right? Tomorrow hasn't even gotten here yet, and you're already thinking about, oh, it's not going to work out. Okay? This is a big one, emotional reasoning. The assumption that emotions reflect the way things really are. Just because you feel it doesn't mean that it's accurate, okay? It's true, it's your emotions, you're feeling, and you have a right to it, but challenge it. Is it true? Because just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. Because we feel things, we think things based on our past experiences, based on what we feel or what we think, based on the news media, what someone said, based on our own emotional issues that we may be dealing with, the healing stages that we're in, etc., etc. But begin to challenge your emotions. Is it really true, right? One of the big things we also do is that a lot of people do this. We recognize the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. Okay, so somebody might say, your supervisor may say something like, oh, wow, hey, you're a wonderful employee, you did a great job, I'm giving you a 95 on your rating, but one of the things I would like for you to start doing is maybe turning in this particular report at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of 9:30, but you're doing a great job and this is an excellent rating. The only thing you hear is that one thing that your supervisor said, and she wants you to start turning the report in 9:30 instead of 9. You blow that up, right? So that's what we mean by we disqualify the positive, right? We do that. Recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positive. Should statements. The belief that things should be a certain way. I should have known better. I should not have made that mistake. Some of you are really, really hard on yourself, right? And because the reason why some people are so hard on themselves, of course, perfectionism, but it goes back to this thing where if I have everything perfect, then nothing bad will happen to me. Or if I have everything perfect, then things should go perfectly. And that's not always the case. Things are not always going to go perfectly for you. All or nothing thinking, as I said before. So again, I'm going to read through these again. Cognitive distortions. Exaggerating or minimizing the importance of events. Okay? Overgeneralization, making broad interpretations from a single or few events. I'm always this way. Jumping to conclusions, interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence, which, like I said, mind reading, fortune telling, emotional reasoning. Because I think the assumption that emotions reflect the way things really are, and that's not always the case, especially when you're dealing with depression. And many of you who are listening to me who are dealing with depression, and you understand that when you're in that moment, when you're feeling depressed, everything looks bad. You feel bad, the world looks bad, nothing looks great, right? Because you're depressed at that particular moment. It's not until you come out of that particular fog and you look back on it, you realize things were not as bad as you thought. But at that moment, you felt that way. Okay? And again, when we talk about should statements, one of the things, let me do this. Automatic thoughts, okay? As I said before, automatic thoughts are those thoughts that just come. So for example, let's say you made a mistake at work, right? I made a mistake. So the automatic thought will come, oh gosh, I'm stupid. They're probably gonna fire me. I'm no good at this particular job, right? Oh my God, this didn't work out, right? I had an incident maybe about a couple months ago where I dented my car. It was my fault. I dented my car, but I dented my car because I wasn't paying attention. And then, for example, then automatic, oh my God, this is so stupid. Oh my God, you're so stupid. Why did you do this? Okay. Oh my God, this was so idiotic. How are you gonna dent your car? There's nobody around, and you're the one, you had the accident, right? So again, having these automatic thoughts, and had to say, wait a minute. Again, challenge that automatic thought. Well, it's not the end of the world. Thank God I got insurance. It's drivable. It's not that serious. I can get it fixed later. Okay? But what happens is when we deal with that self-critic, it's hard for us to get to that new thought. So we have to pay attention to what we're thinking. What was the trigger for this particular thought? The trigger was somebody said something. Okay? So why is that a problem? Okay? What was it about what that person said that triggers you? Okay? Again, another example, somebody may have said something, and I'm trying to use some examples that I can use. Your supervisor said, okay, I need everybody to come to work on time. Okay? Everybody doing a good job, but just make sure everybody come to work on time. Automatically, oh gosh, I was late. I was 5 minutes late. Oh my God. Then the next thought that comes, oh gosh, he must have gonna fire me. Oh gosh, if I don't come to work on time, I'm gonna get fired. Oh gosh, if I don't do this, the way my boss is looking at me. That goes back to that self-critic, right? Oh gosh, what's gonna happen now? Automatically, your boss made a statement, okay, I need everybody to come to work on time. Automatically, you're thinking about the 5 minutes you were late yesterday. Oh, I was late yesterday. Oh my gosh, my boss is going to fire me. What is the new thought? What is the evidence for that? Well, hey, I've been here 5 years, and the only time I was late was yesterday, and that was 5 minutes. And there are other people who are late, so it wasn't me. I'm sure if it was me, my supervisor would have said something. And again, I'm just throwing that out as an example. But you know what your examples are. You know what your triggers are. Because one of the things you're going to do after you listen to this is that you're going to pay attention to your feelings, your emotions, and then tie your feelings, emotions to the thoughts that you're having. Okay? Why am I feeling this particular way? What thoughts are going through my mind? And then you begin to ask yourself, how did I get here? Why am I having these particular thoughts? And again, the answer, I want us to get beyond blaming it on other people, okay? Even though it may or may not be true, I want us to take a look at us, because we can't control other people. The past is gone. You can't control what other people say or don't say, no matter how you try, because even if they don't say it, they may be thinking it anyway. So the issue is what's going on in here, going on the inside. So when we have those automatic thoughts, pay attention to those automatic thoughts, and then I want you to begin to challenge those. And you begin to challenge those with a more unbiased or more balanced view. Okay? Another thing, thoughts, where we talk about core beliefs. And this is where it's just that. They're core beliefs that are deeply held beliefs that influence how we interpret our experiences. So we have our automatic thoughts, and then we have these core beliefs. These core beliefs are the deeply held beliefs that influence how we interpret our experiences. And I'm reading from some items that we have on our website. Okay? So core beliefs, for example, are things like, I'm stupid. If I really believe that I'm not good enough, for example, if I really believe that, then of course, those are my core beliefs. Then my automatic beliefs systems is going to relate to that core belief. And that's how I'm going to view the world. And not just view the world on the outside, I'm going to think that's what other people are thinking. That even when people are talking, I'm hearing and I'm listening through my core beliefs. I'm hearing and I'm listening through those automatic thoughts. Well, the automatic thoughts that are leading to that, but I'm hearing and I'm listening through my core beliefs. If I really think that I am unworthy, I really think that I'm not a good person, that I'm stupid, that I'm unlovable, if I really think that, this real, my mother left, my father left me, right? Okay, they left. I don't know why they left, but in my mind, they left because it was something I said or did. So because I believe that core belief, that has guided me for the last 50 years. So of course it's going to be hard to challenge that, but it doesn't matter what people say. That's my core belief. I believe that I'm unlovable. Some of you, because of things that happen to you, as I said before, you really believe that you're not a good person. You really believe that you're ugly. You really believe that, I'm not worth it. I'm not worth it, okay? I was an accident. I was a mistake, okay? You really believe that. No matter how many times you say you don't, some of you really do. And how do I know that? Because how you live your life. You can see how you live your life and how you view other people. The things you say about other people really is a window into how you think about yourself as well, okay? Some of you are just automatically critical of other people, right? You're just so critical, you're just so judgmental of other people, and it goes back to how you feel about yourself, okay? Those core beliefs, those things that you tell yourself. Again, remember, the ultimate goal, the purpose of this broadcast is to let you know, number one, that there is hope, which is our Make Hope an Option. And that's not just something that we say. We believe that everyone has a God-given purpose for living, no matter what your illness is, okay? There's a reason for you being here, and I believe that you owe it to yourself to find out what that reason is and to begin to walk in the path that God has for you. And I know it's a wonderful path. I don't need to know you, but I know that God, the plans that He has for you, for me, are all good thoughts, okay? All good thoughts are positive thoughts. Any thought, feeling, or behavior that comes to you and that causes you to back away from walking fully in the goodness and the things that the purpose that God has for you is a lie. It's not true. So when we talk about why I'm spending so much time on these core beliefs and these irrational beliefs and what we think, because that is what's stopping you. It's not your illness, okay? It's not the fact that you hear voices. It's not that you're diagnosed with depression. It's not the fact that you're managing your anxiety or you have to take medication. That's not the issue, okay? The issue is what we're telling ourselves. That is the problem. The problem are these negative things, these negative thoughts, the self-criticism, the way that we view ourselves. That is the issue. We have to begin to replace these negative thoughts with balanced thoughts. Not necessarily positive thinking. Positive thinking is good too, but I want us to start looking at more balanced thinking, because balanced thinking is more realistic, right? Balanced thinking takes into account, sometimes I do make mistakes, but I don't always make mistakes, okay? No, I'm not the best looking person, but I'm not the worst either, okay? No, I'm not a bad person. No, I'm not a bad person. I may not be a great person all the time or, a good person all the time. I make mistakes, but I'm not always a bad person, okay? I'm a person who maybe makes some mistakes or may do bad things, or every now and then I do stupid things like run my car, wreck my car, be involved in a one-car accident, but I'm not a bad driver. It's just something that happened, right? We say things like, I'm abnormal. No, I'm not abnormal. I may be just a little different, okay? I'm worthless. No, I am not worthless, okay? Again, you have to begin to challenge these thoughts, but no, it's going to take some time. Because it's a habit. How we think is a habit. It comes from our core beliefs, okay? It manifested in those automatic thoughts, but it's our core beliefs. That's what's on the inside. And the core of us manifests those automatic thoughts. The automatic thoughts come from our core beliefs, right? So we have to begin to deal with those automatic thoughts and those core beliefs. as we begin to deal with the core beliefs, the automatic thoughts will be easier. But we have to begin to take a look at, what do you really think about yourself? Not what people, what you think people want to hear, but what do you really kind of think about yourself? Let me watch my time here, because sometimes I'm just talking, and I'm not even on the air. What do you really think about yourself? Okay, there we go. I have to see. What do you really think about yourself? If I were to ask you to name me 10 positive things about yourself, many people would have a hard time. Or if you named it, you would name it in connection with other people, okay? Or you would tell me about the things that you do, okay? I'm not asking you about what you do. Name me 10 positive things about yourself. A lot of people would struggle. Conversely, if we said, okay, name 10 things that you have to work on, or 10 negative things, people go, one, blah, 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 oh, I got to work my weight, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that, do that. Okay? But we struggle when we talk about the positive things. Why? Because we're so used to telling ourselves negative things. We're so used to being self-critical. We're so used to those core beliefs. Our core beliefs are rotten. Our core beliefs are not true. Our core beliefs are based on a trauma that happened to us in our lives, and we've just internalized that trauma, and it's become our core beliefs. We have to begin to challenge those core beliefs. The problem is not the narcissist. The narcissist is not your problem. The person, the boss, your supervisor is not your problem. Your mother, your father, your ex-husband, your ex-wife, your kid that don't like you, the person that yell at you, they are not your problem, right? Our first problem, our first thing we have to deal with is the self-critic. That's us. That critic that's on the inside. Okay, that's what we have to begin to deal with it, and we begin to deal with it by one understanding what are those things that I'm telling myself. Okay, are these things helpful or not helpful? Okay, and that's number two. And then if they're not, are they true? Are they accurate? And it doesn't mean because I feel it. Because I feel it, something doesn't mean that it's true. Doesn't mean that it's accurate. It's just the way I feel. We have to begin to challenge our thoughts. Is this really accurate? Is this really true? Is it really true that nobody loves you? Well, nobody likes me. How do you know that? You don't know everybody. Now, you may say, well, the people maybe in my building don't like me. Okay, so you talked to all 150 people in your building, and you took a poll, and they all said they didn't like you. Well, no, I really didn't take a poll. So who are we talking about? Well, maybe 5 people. Okay, 5 people. So that's a big difference than saying nobody likes me in the building. Or nobody likes me in my class. Well, how many classmates do you have? There are 30. Did you take a poll of all 30 classmates? Well, no, not really. So how do you know? Okay. So only maybe 4 or 5 of them out of 30 people. Okay. So again, this is what I mean by begin to challenge that. Well, I'll just never get a job. I lost my job. I'll never get a job. Did you? Okay, you said you lost a job, right? And so in your mind, you say, I'll never get another one, right? But you had this job. So just like you got this job, where's the evidence to say that you'll never get another one? Well, there's no evidence. There's more evidence that will say that you will get another job versus evidence saying that you won't get another job, right? Because you had a job before. Well, yeah, that's true. So you've been in this situation before. Well, yeah, that's true. Okay, so again, you gotta begin to challenge those thoughts and not let your feelings have the final say. If your feelings are not accurate, just because you think of something or feel something doesn't mean that it's true. I can think that I'm unworthy all I want to. I can think that nobody likes me. I can feel, oh wow, this is just like there's no hope. But is it really true? Okay? Pull out a pen, paper, and begin to challenge those thoughts, those feelings. Okay? Because it's hard to really to give an accurate view, to have an accurate view of what's going on in the now if we're so tied to the past, right? To what happened. If I'm so tied to what happened in the past, or I don't really not paying attention or realize that how I'm thinking has a lot to do with what happened to me in the past and my experiences and what somebody said, it's hard to move forward fully. Okay? So again, when we're dealing with a severe and persistent mental illness or chronic illness, we have a lot of things, a lot of negative things are said. You've been made to feel a certain way. Like, for example, if you've had to be admitted to a psych ward, for example, many times when people are admitted to a psych ward, in that particular moment, you may have had a psychotic episode, or you may be really depressed, or depending on how you got there, maybe the police had to be called, or maybe your parents had to take you, or maybe your friend had, whatever, had to take you to the hospital, right? So now you're home, you're getting better, and you're back home, and everybody know, well, psst, psst, was that the girl? Oh, yeah, the police had to be called for her. Psst, psst. Oh yeah, that was the one. Oh yeah, that's that lady. Her son, there's something wrong with him. So again, those thoughts, I get it. Those experiences some people have had who are listening to me. Right? You've had to deal with that. You've had to deal with the whispers. You had to deal with people saying things about you. You had to deal with the police coming and taking you away, and you being on a psych ward and everybody knowing about it and being embarrassed. There's nothing, again, side note, there's no reason to be embarrassed about going to a psych ward, right? A psychiatric facility. If you had a heart attack and had to go into, to a regular hospital or a regular ward, you wouldn't be embarrassed. So we got to normalize mental health, right? It happens. Chronic mental illness, as I said before, is a chronic disease that has to be managed. Sometimes you may have highs and lows, just like with any other illness. But again, because of the stigma of mental illness, because of the embarrassment, many people have to suffer. They suffer in shame, suffer in silence, and they deal with the embarrassment. They deal with, the anxiety. They don't want people to know because of what people will think. And then, unfortunately, many people, they don't deal with it until it gets really bad, until it really gets out of control. And then that's the time when you wind up having to maybe have to be admitted against your will because it's gotten so bad, okay? So I get it. When you're living with a chronic illness, mental illness, for many people, shame is involved initially, embarrassment, anxiety. You may even be depressed about it. It's a life-changing experience because the things that you thought you were going to be able to do, you're not going to be able to do it the way you thought. So it's a lot that goes along with it. So yes, you're going to have those self-doubt, those self-worry. You're going to have periods where you don't feel good about maybe what's happening or what has happened to your life. But as you move towards recovery, because recovery is possible, and recovery, part of that is acceptance. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is not saying, things are just never going to change. Acceptance is just realizing, okay, I have an illness that has to be managed. This is where I am in life. It doesn't mean that I can't move forward. It doesn't mean that I still can't have the life that I envision. It just may look a little different, or I may have to move a little slower. But when you're dealing with that shame and embarrassment, it can be hard, depending on when you were diagnosed, how you were diagnosed, the people involved. It can be a lot. For family members, it's a lot. For the individual living with the illness, it can be a lot. But I want you to know, you have no reason to be ashamed. You have no reason to be embarrassed. You can move forward. There are many people who are recovering from a mental illness, a severe and persistent mental illness, and you can be one of those people too. You don't have to let the illness become your entire life. Initially when you first get diagnosed, it's about getting a diagnosis, it's about medications, it's about getting the right treatment plan. But having an illness, it doesn't have to be your whole life. It's just part of who you are. You're still an individual. You're still a person who may be living with the symptoms of schizophrenia, a person who's living with the symptoms of depression or of bipolar, whatever your illness is, but you're still a person. Right? So kind of keep that in mind. Shame and embarrassment doesn't have to stop you. It may have, it may be part of it. That may, maybe something that you may have to deal with, but you can overcome it. And you overcome it by beginning to challenge the root of those feelings, those thoughts that bring about that shame and that bring about that embarrassment. And as you begin to challenge it, the easier it'll get. The more you begin to challenge those automatic thoughts, or first become aware of them. Many times we're not aware of our thoughts. But once you become aware of your automatic thoughts, then you begin to ask yourself, where is this thought coming from? And then you can again begin to look at those deep thoughts, those core beliefs. And as you begin to look at your core beliefs, you can begin to say, you know what,